Hey Woo lovers, Lee from straightwoo.com here with a new moon in Libra reading. Gonna switch it up a little bit at this new moon in Libra. I'm gonna do some new moon in Libra horoscopes for my favorite peoples. That would be you. Before we get into that, my plan loosely is to talk about the new moon in Libra and then go sign by sign. I'll put some timestamps below so because you probably ain't care about nobody else. You just want to hear your own stuff, which is sensible. Before I get into that, a word of thanks to our sponsors, my Patreons. Patreon.com is where a group of lovely, fine folks are currently helping me keep my astro boat afloat. Lots of different tiers of feedback there. So like some people are in a closed FB group or Facebook group where we get to chat astro shop and exchange memes and just kind of be in community. Some people are on a monthly webinar with me as a group where we get to ask questions and kind of be in community with one another. And then my very fancy folks are doing one-on-ones in a monthly Skype call, which is really cool. So thanks to those people for supporting my work and making stuff like this more and more possible. And then secondly, I'd love for you to join, of course. Following on from that, I have been really excited about the feedback so far from my Venus retrograde download, which has been really, really fun to release since last Friday. If you want to check that out, I'll put some links below so you can see about that. I designed the Venus retrograde download not just so that you could see what was going on during the retrograde, which is probably what is interesting to a lot of people, but firstly, I want you to really change your idea about planet Venus and what planet Venus is about, which I think I do effectively in this download. And then number two, there's a part of the download that you can use as a framework for how you view relationships now and until forever. It's not just something that's going to be specific to this retrograde. It's some learning that I have found and come across in the years that I found really, really meaningful and helpful in understanding where I was at in certain interpersonal relationships. So just a word about that, and hopefully some of you will continue to join that, because again, the feedback so far has been really great, and it's super exciting to share that material with people. And in a sense, the new moon in Libra is like a new moon in Venus retrograde, because Libra, which is the sign of the new moon, is ruled by Venus. And Venus has just gone retrograde only, 4 or 5 days ago in Scorpio at right about 10 degrees. So anytime there's a big astrological shift like that, and then we have a new moon, that can be really interesting, especially if that new moon is connected to the planet in question. A good example is new moon in Capricorn. What would that have been? January 2018 this year. That happened right after Saturn moved into Capricorn. So that new moon in Capricorn was almost like the seed pod, a really great push off the starting block about Saturn in Capricorn. And I feel like the very same thing is happening here with the new moon in Libra and Venus retrograde in Scorpio in Libra. It's in Scorpio now, but it will very soon be in Libra. And there's essentially 2 or 3 themes that I want to talk about for the new moon in Libra and how they interconnect. And then I want to carry on into your new moon horoscopes, which I hope will be helpful. If I had to name this new moon in Libra, I would call it, You Really Got a Hold on Me. This new moon is conjunct asteroid Ceres. Asteroid Ceres, some of you may be familiar with, some of you won't. It's a slightly more rarefied point in astrology, and it is an asteroid body, one of 4 such asteroid bodies, Ceres, Juno, Pallas, Vesta, that kind of round out the chart, and most specifically round out the chart, and I'd say as per a feminine narrative, perhaps. Or, if you don't prefer the word feminine, anima would be another way to say this, or the yin, the inner yin urge. So asteroid Ceres is somewhat the great mother. She's about motherhood, mothering, conception, nurturing, and nurturance. Whatever, it's almost like an extension of the moon, an octave of the moon, because it is very much about a deep brass tacks level, what makes us feel held, what makes us feel nurtured. And in the chart, natally, challenges to that will show what comes in the way of us getting nurtured. Asteroid Ceres is super conjunct this new moon in Libra and square to Pluto. Again, if you've been following my work for a couple months, 6 months, or 18 months, you've probably heard about Ceres and Ceres Pluto many, many times. In fact, I'll give you the dates now. I talked about Ceres, I wrote about Ceres and Pluto in the August 2017 solar eclipse. That's on my site if you want to click back on that and reacquaint with yourself. The blood lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse in January 2018 this year. I talked a lot about this. And again at the lunar eclipse August 2018 this year. This was like a series of lunations, of eclipses in particular, that had Ceres and Ceres Pluto themes really built into those charts. So I've talked about this, like, I feel like so many times, and it's just uncanny that Ceres stroke Ceres Pluto keeps on engaging in this lunation cycle, or the lunation cycles of 2018. So to put it in a nutshell, and not to go, beat the poor dead horse, I invite you to go back, and specifically for the solar eclipse in Leo, August 2017, that was the Great American Solar Eclipse. I wrote out the myth of Ceres and Pluto, I think, pretty decently. So if you want to reacquaint yourself with that myth, head there. What it essentially is about, though, is that Ceres and Pluto, in aspect natally or in a transit chart like this one, is about striking the balance between attachment and loss, and grappling with attachment and loss. It's about not always getting what we want and learning a great deal from that. It's learning the difference between love and attachment, or kind of love and codependent love. Another astrologer, Bob Marks, has described Ceres square Pluto as negotiated nurturing, which I really, really like, because I've seen this often in a natal chart. Ceres square or opposite Pluto, or in synastry, if Ceres and Pluto make tough aspects. Nurturance doesn't come easily. We don't get the things that we want from the people in our lives in kind of a smooth fashion. It feels quite, well, if you do this, I'll do that. And if he doesn't do this, he can forget about getting that. It's very like a coercive way of being in a nurturing partnership, or more. But there is this sense of negotiating nurturing, that like having to force the other party to give you what you want. It doesn't, again, flow very smoothly. So that's the real core of this chart. Hence why I said you really got a hold on me. It's like there's something that we have to approach as part of this chart, and especially being Libra, which is about striking a balance. I feel like a big part of this chart is striking a balance between attachment and loss. Excuse me. And then as a second theme, the lunation ruler here again is Venus. Planet Venus in Scorpio, newly turned retrograde, is making a square to Mars. And it's making a square to Mars just at the moment that it's like Mars is becoming unshackled and is out of shadow. And yet here's Venus like stationing retrograde and looking to the past, dragging backwards. And even this is a very, very interesting dynamic. For sure, if you have planets in your natal chart from 6 degrees to 14 of the fixed sign, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, both of these retrogrades, Venus and Mars, are like coming for you. They've got your number. And reason being is that here is Mars, which stationed retrograde and finished retrograde at 9 degrees, or finished its shadow period at 9 degrees of Aquarius. And in an almost perfect square, here's Venus in Scorpio, stationed retrograde at about 10 degrees Scorpio, and will then leave shadow once it exits that degree. So they're in quite a tense aspect. Funny enough, Venus and Mars, when they square each other, that's not bad necessarily. That can create a lot of tension and attraction, because attraction is really based on tension. The people that like walk into the room and that we easily take in, and they're here and that's fine, and oh, hi, how are you? Those are not the people that, get us sparked in that kind of way of attraction and of lust and desire. It's more the people that were like, ooh, that almost put us on the back foot or make us nervous. That tension is the root of desire. So Venus square Mars itself is not bad or problematic. It can actually just turn up a big charge of attraction and desire, even, real sexual lust type stuff. I would say that if that stuff comes to the fore for you at the new moon in Libra, just know that Venus square Mars, I would not say is very discerning. It's somewhat indiscriminate and even indiscreet in what it gets attracted to and how it goes about it. You might enjoy that anyway, who knows? But it is attraction, but it's perhaps indiscriminate. But what I also see in Venus square to Mars here is like two very different impulses. Mars direct in Aquarius, just out of shadow, is just like, again, feeling free and easy, moving back at a good speed now. So this is good news for the parts of your chart that are ruled by Aries and Scorpio. These parts of the chart will now really start to move forward. They were already doing that since Mars station direct, but now it's like, really the pressure's off, and there can be movement again in a very serious way. So Mars in Aquarius, air sign, thinking, objectivity, rational, detached, is in Aquarius very innovative. It's like a cool, mean, lean, very clever, innovative, futurist mindset. So Mars in Aquarius is like, I see the vision, I see what I want, I see where I want to go, I see where I'm headed, bam, I want to get there. It has speed now, it has that dynamism. Where, meanwhile, back at the ranch, Venus in Scorpio retrograde is like, oh no, not so fast. I feel things deeply, Scorpio's water sign. And I'm reflecting on things deeply. I want to go back here. There are things I want to review. There's things I want to reacquaint myself with. I need to rediscover things. I'm dredged deep into the past. Well, Mars in Aquarius looks way out to the future. In a sense, I think this is it could be indicative in many cases about our resistance to the Venus retrograde. Right? So like Mars in Aquarius and what it's churning up is like, look, this is the vision. This is the grand new ideal. This is where I want to head. This is this is the thing we need to change, is possibly a distraction or could possibly be an easy route for distraction. While Venus in Scorpio retrograde churns deeper and deeper and deeper and wants to root itself in this reflective process. That it's not always going to be pretty because we're in Scorpio. It's a very challenging sign. It's very confrontational. It's very penetrative. It goes way beneath the surface. And here's like, again, Mars in Aquarius that wants to just jet on forward. And like, emotions, what are those? Level. Let's keep on going. So on one hand, I really, I think this is about being attracted to change and understanding or having these new visions about like what's in the future for you and what is going to attract you forward and what new excitements, new attractions would push you to innovate and move forward. But I think this could also be for many people the resistance to the Venus retrograde themes, especially if you've got really deep, tough romantic relationship stuff going on. For example, Mars in Aquarius would be the guy that, like, I say the guy, the person that wants to move forward and change things. Again, using the mind, being cerebral, being detached and objective, as most air signs are, and quite ethical. Air signs are, in general, based in ethics, very ethical as they work. But that might mean, if you go full on Mars Aquarius, that you don't really get stuff sorted out. It might be that things on paper and in discussion are done in such a way that it's like, oh yes, this makes sense. And oh yeah, I can see that we need to change this, so we need to do that. Okay, great. Like, this is the plan. But Venus retrograde in Scorpio is like, poking holes in the well-laid plans of Mars and Aquarius. So I have a sense that there is resistance to the depth of what Venus retrograde in Scorpio wants to churn up. The third theme that I think is the one that's going to carry us through is Pallas trine to Pluto. And there's other stuff in this chart too, but this is kind of what I think is the heart. Pallas and Virgo trine to Pluto. Pallas is an Amazonian, warrior-like, strategic, creative vessel. And in Virgo, incredibly discerning and precise. And I think I've probably used this in recent videos. One thing that I love that the Maharishi said was that on one's spiritual journey, the thing that we need most is discernment. So I always think about that when I think about Virgo. The power of being on a spiritual journey, but coming with this discernment, not just the faith and the optimism and the, all in my heart and love and light, but the discernment, the separating wheat from chaff. Woo from straight woo, if you will. And when Pallas trines Pluto, or sextiles, but the trine is more powerful naturally, we can use our minds and our creative energy and our strategy and our ability to see clearly to shift things, to get us unstuck, to move. This is a configuration that can shift and move energy very deftly. There's almost something shamanic about it. There is a natural connection in this aspect to healing. So that's powerful. Some people might resonate with that. Some people might resonate with the idea of the shamanic shifting and moving of energy. But this is about using, on the most mundane level, our mind and our will to control our environment, how we're feeling, how we're engaging with it, and move, to get unstuck. Because there's a part of this chart that's building towards stuckness. There is, in general, my Patreon webinar folks know this because I think we talked about it, from about the 9th or 10th of this month to about the 13th, there's what we call a grand fixed cross. Now, this is not the last time this will happen. It will come again later in the month around the 22nd to almost the 1st of November. And a grand fixed cross is when there are 4 points in a chart squaring one another, again, creating a cross, across fixed signs, which are, again, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. And when this happens, the fixed signs being the most stable and solid, but also the most intractable, the ones that have the most potential for inertia, things become very tight indeed. We can feel really strapped in and like there's no possibility for movement or change, or that we are stuck, that there's a level of rigidity across these parts of our chart that we just can't express, we can't act. Even if we act, it's not going to do anything. And usually it's important to know, of course, that most of these situations are something we feel or something we think. It's not necessarily reality, right? So there is going to be a grand fixed cross building right after this new moon. And so that's therefore why I feel like the Pallas Pluto trine is so important, because that is going to put us in touch with an innate, creative, strategic intelligence that sits within us that can spy from quite some distance things that are just an obstacle, things that are not on the way but just in the way, spot them and just chuck them out. So these to me are like the 3 core themes. Ceres square Pluto, striking a balance between attachment and loss. Venus retrograde in Scorpio square Mars and Aquarius, either the resistance to change, the attraction to change, possibly what the tension between where Venus retrograde wants to take us, and then also what we find attractive in the future. And then the Pallas Pluto trine, which is about, again, using our minds and our will in fabulous fashion to address the other 2 themes and to shift any stuckness that we feel resonates or generates from these kind of configurations. So let's get into little mini horoscopes, shall we? I'll do these pretty quickly. This is the kind of thing that if you were to take at some point my moon cycles class, you would start learning how to do for yourself. Of course, it's something that kind of builds on itself in terms of the skill over time. But let's get into it. So, you know what? Let's start with Libra. I was going to start in Aries, but you know what? Libra, you're always at the halfway point. We might as well make you the beginning because it's your moon. So, new moon in Libra. Definitely if you are born around this time, meaning these dates, maybe 7th to 10th, 11th of October, this is a big new moon for you because it will also be in something called your solar return chart, which is a chart that's generated on the day of your birth. Quite important, astrologically speaking, because it kind of embeds the energy of this new moon in Libra into the birthday year. So it's something that could keep going in the next year of life, or the theme could be present, at least in the background. And so also as caveat before I start this, when I say Libra, I mean really Libra rising. Feel free to listen to both your sun and your rising sign, whatever works for you. So Libra rising, there seems to be a sense of the need to balance oneself against quite powerful dynamics at home and with family. You may be feeling split from pillar and post to find a way to balance the need to nurture yourself versus quite dramatic, quite deep, intense stuff happening with your family. The Venus retrograde is happening in your second house of income and squaring Mars in the fifth. So this gives me a sense that like there could be something creative that you are driven to try and do or attempt to get going, and you might feel galvanized to get going. It could be creative. It could be about children. It could also be about romance and lovers. But that Venus retrograde in Scorpio really wants to push you quite deeply and intensely to think about your values and how those values conflict with and also are entangled in attractions, romantic attractions, how you spend money, indulgences even are part of this thing. And also creativity. So it's like there's probably a drive for something creative to change, but what does your money situation say? That possibly conflicts with the desire you have right now. I think you're going to have ample opportunity to take advantage of the Pallas Pluto trine, which is going to happen across a part of your chart that definitely deals with hidden agendas, hidden enemies, hidden people, hidden sufferings. So I think there's going to be, on one hand, the need to balance loss and attachment against yourself and family, but on the second level, you're going to have more ability to understand and look at why some of these dynamics are playing out the way they are, and to think about how you can start collapsing them. Again, remember, Pallas Pluto, she sees what needs to be done, and with her discerning eye, just move things, shift things so they're out of the way. So that is my Libra people. Scorpio rising. Y'all got stuff going on because the Venus retrograde is happening in your house. But on the other hand, you got Venus and Jupiter both in your sign right now, which is a real boon time because you've got like the two goodies in your personal house, casa tua. So interesting, because that means the new moon in Libra is happening in your 12th house, which is kind of a hidden little space. It is where we find hidden enemies, retreat, isolation. On one hand, this could be about, 1, 2, 3. This could be about the difference between balancing retreat and isolation and hiding ourselves away and being in community and interacting with people and being in our neighborhood, being our local beat. It could be, there's also something about the mind here sometimes. So it could also be finding the balance between the dark sides of your mind, which are sometimes helpful, but not always, and the parts of your mind that are much more efficient and solid in a certain way and probably pragmatic and grounded, but might sometimes try to overlook and sidestep heavy deep stuff. Venus retrograde is really important for you because, again, it's happening in your sign, in your rising sign. The Venus retrograde in Scorpio square to Mars is very much about, is the desire to kind of change and make changes in how we relate to our roots and our family. But the Venus retrograde in Scorpio is saying, like, almost before we go off on this plan and we try to fix other people and the dynamic and put people in our family group to their paces, and kind of shift things and make changes, why don't we look in the mirror first? That's very much what your Venus retrograde is about. It's about me and the dark mirror of me. And so this is the starting point, is to think about the value of self, our values, what is dear to us right now, and then think about, I can make those changes in my family or my home, my house, or even just in the way that I think about my childhood and my roots, but that the change starts with me. You're going to have very helpful aspects between Pallas and Pluto. Pallas is going to be in your 11th house of friends and groups, which is handy, and nicely trining your 3rd house of siblings, auntie, uncles, that kind of stuff. So if anything, that feels like being in community with people. That could be speaking to a group, communicating to a group, writing to a group, being involved in a group atmosphere, or just with friends where writing and speaking and expressing are very important, or are part of the jam. I think that's it for you guys, my friend. But I would say write it out. When in doubt, write it out for you, new moon in Libra. Sag-tastic friends. Sag rising. This Ceres Pluto square in the new moon in Libra is happening in a space involved in friendship groups. This is going to be a space that's lit up pretty soon by the Venus retrograde in particular. So there's going to be an enhanced review of friendships and groups and networks and associations. And there seems to be like a sense of, loss and attachment against the 11th and 2nd. I think about like values and friendships, and realizing that a lot of friendships you lose track of because your values shift. And it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to mean the end of a friendship, but just it probably means the end of a certain level of intimacy. For some people that are much more outward thinking, and this is not a friend or a friendship or a friendship group, this might be more about even activism and in charity. And I think the grounds of this kind of stuff are really shifting, even if we just look at the last couple of weeks about Brett Kavanaugh and that kind of stuff. A lot of people are getting active and activated that might have previously held opinions but didn't know how to get involved, or were kind of wary about getting involved. So I think this is about also looking at the groups that you're getting involved with, the activism or the charity that you're getting involved with, and making sure that money, time, values, and resources that you are pumping into this space, that you feel like values are in alignment there, that there's a real, connection on a very deep level. There's a sense of wanting to change with the Venus-Mars square. How you relate to the more difficult parts of your personality that might be challenging to you and might sometimes upend your really well-intentioned plans for growth or for change, or, for anything really. I always think about the 12th house is the house of hidden enemies, and the worst hidden enemy any of us have is ourselves. It's not as often as we would like to think somebody else's fault, which is something you already know because you're going through a lot, Sag and Sag rising folks. Have been for several years, kind of parts of the heat are off. But I think about necessary changes that you want to make, that you are driven to make in some family relationships, could be siblings, aunties, uncles, could be in your community, but it's probably about your mind, how you think, how you relate, how you communicate, how you take in and process information, and how that kind of cycle works for you. But the depth of where you need to go right now is not, like, I think about the difference between right now is not the time to be like on the bullhorn spreading out the message, or sharing our wisdoms or sharing our learnings, if that's a blog or if that's something you want to teach or something you're excited about sharing with a group of people. It's also not the time to like make big changes in our sense of community or culture in a way, whatever that means to us. It is a time to really get down to the business of who am I when no one's looking, and what in what ways can I go back and review some of the deeper lessons I have about the inner workings of myself and the inner workings against myself that often happen. And that needs to happen first before you go out and kind of like spread the message. Capricorn rising. I say this every time I do horoscopes, and I mean it. Y'all got enough problems. Capricorn rising folks, you got Saturn in the first house, you got Pluto in the first house, the Mars retrograde happened in part of your house. I mean, it's like, yo house under fire, girlfriends. So for you, this is about achieving a sense of balance between attachment and loss with career and yourself. And in the sense is that you want to nurture your career, very Capricornian of you, that there's an attempt to make a strike at really nurturing one's career and being nurtured by it. But that deep transformational occurrences within ourself, even within our bodies, are getting in the way of that. And that probably we need to respect that process and lay off some of our Cap rising impulses, which tell us to do, and to make things happen. This could be a time where we really need to not just strike the balance between loss and attachment, but being and doing. I think the Venus retrograde, 11, 12, 1, 2, is about you want to make changes with money, and you want to make changes about the way that you interact with money and what money means to you. For some people that money is not the direct issue. There could be something more about value, self-value, self-esteem, like the desire, like I have a new vision of what I am going to be valued. That could be the money that I bring in because I see a new career option for me, or a raise I want, a promotion I want, something I want to sell, something I want to bring into myself. Or it could be something like, I have a new vision of who I want to be and how I want to, self-assign value, self-worth, self-esteem. And Venus instead is saying, okay, but like, let's look at your community. Let's look at your group of friends. Let's look at what your hopes and aspirations are. Let's check out this whole area and get really down and dirty and review it. And it's almost like that, that saying, like, if you're the average of the 5 people closest to you, this new moon in Libra is saying, like, check out, let's do a recce on those 5 people and see if they stack up. Are those 5 people going to be standing next to me when I have reached my vision of what I want and who I'm going to be and all the value I'm going to hold? Pallas Pluto trine seems to say that spiritual pursuits, healing work, astrological stuff, anything mystical, as well as foreign places, people, and higher education could help you shift some of the deep-seated, you've got Pluto in the first house. When that happens, we have to really pay attention to the vessel of energy that we're carrying and holding, and when that shit needs to be emptied. And I think there's a really good chance for emptying and releasing some of this Plutonian stuff out by healing, higher-minded stuff. For some people, it could be like, listening to a Sam Harris podcast. For some people, it's going to be shamanic plant medicine. For some people, it's going to be a Reiki session with your girlfriend who's getting her certifications. Whatever you got to do. Aquarius. So, new moon in Libra in the 9th house, which is great house and trines your sign naturally because it's an air sign, seem to suggest that you need to strike a balance between spiritual, higher, otherly pursuits, like the desire for expansion and going beyond crappy self into like, magical other self that can be accessed through higher education, by being surrounded by foreign people and cultures that really stretch our brains open, by all the mystical stuff. Astrology is a part of this, again, but it's anything that's higher minded. And the balance is between that space, this expansive space, and this other part of us that says, that hunkers down, that needs to go small and inwards and within, in order to know something. And there's a part of this outward stuff and expansive stuff that is almost like it can be spiritual bypassing. Like, I'm going to take another course. I'm going to sign up to another Reiki thing. I'm going to listen to like it gets to be part of this house can get to be chasing meaning, chasing symbol, chasing belief, but never quite grasping it, never quite getting it. And that's up against a different part of the chart, which is saying, it's like the non-negotiable part that says, hey, yeah, you can expand all you want, girlfriend, but I still know what undoes you. You can take as many yoga classes as you want, girlfriend, but I still know what keeps you up at night. So you need to balance these two sides. Sometimes when we're deep on a spiritual pursuit, or indeed if we're on any expansion path, we can ignore the necessary contractions required to really growth. Birth requires contractions, right? The stomach expands to create space for the baby, but the baby comes out through contractions, not through further expansions. Thank God. So that is kind of where I'm at with you. Venus to Mars. So Venus square Mars. So this is suggesting you've got changes you want to make in yourself, your own damn self. You want to change. You have a new vision of self and selfhood that you want to achieve. And there's a sense that needs to line up with your public profile, your public personality somehow, and that you're probably in a deep review about career stuff and figuring out how those two things are going to align in the right way. I think you've got really good aspects between Pallas and Pluto in order to help you shift past limiting beliefs and to make those necessary contractions so that the birth can happen, that you can birth out this new sense of self that I think you're quite keen to get in touch with. Pisces rising, my fishy little babes. All right. I love God, I love your sign, but I also love like reading for your sign. So my deep feeling Pisces friends, new moon in Libra is happening in part of your chart that is often associated with endings and loss and grief. It is therefore very deep and not one of the easier places to have a new or full moon. But we all got to have a new or full moon there at some point in the year. And this is your turn. And this suggests that you need to achieve a balance between loss and attachment, particularly as it applies to groups and friendships. I hope this does not mean for some of you that you are anticipating the actual physical loss of a friend. For some it may. For others, I think it's really more about, first it can be about what keeps us from friendship. Like, what is the stuff that I fear that keeps me out of community and out of being in friendship with people and out of that connection? Also, what keeps me? What are the creepy things I'm telling myself all the time that keep me from feeling good, from feeling positive, that there's something out there that I can get? That's also an option here. Venus square Mars is, I think you've been playing with a part of your chart for the whole summer that's about, how do I break out from again, there is a repeated pattern here, from self-limiting beliefs, and how do I find a way to kind of, in a way, fight and confront the hidden enemy, which again, if you've listened to earlier ones, I think the real hidden enemy is ourselves. And I think what you need to return to is all the things that you could obliquely package under spiritual path, spiritual journey, and just kind of reconcile, where am I at on the path? How am I feeling about it? Who are my teachers? Who am I looking up to? Can I see the value in their work? And is the value in their work helping release me from this inner hidden enemy? Is it working? Is it happening? If not, you might need to, kind of go back to basics and kind of see if you think there needs to be a shift there, and who you're following and who you're looking up to, and like what spiritual beliefs are informing your work and your way of being in the world could be something to look at. You're going to have, I think, a lot of positive help from friends and even romantic partners. Like, these would be more committed partners, people you know, people you're like, maybe you're living with them, maybe you're married, maybe you're just very serious in your partnership together. But it could be a great time to do a group retreat. It would be a great time to just get together with friends, friends that are lovers, lovers that are friends. It could be about the friendship we experience through our most primary partnerships, which will be beneficial in helping us kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel and get unstuck. Aries. I know y'all angry because I made y'all wait. You were thinking you were going to be first up, first in, first out. No chance for that. And I say that as an Aries. New moon in the 7th house, which is the space of marriage partners, romance partners. That space is about to get some serious work done to it, because that is where very soon part of the Venus retrograde will happen. But this looks like a need to balance between the nurturance we give to other people and the nurturance and kind of like intense changes in career. Let's say you're in a career, you've got a job or a passion that you're trying to turn into a career. This could be about, I'm helping people and I'm giving energies out, but shit, I'm totally changing my idea of what my career is and where I'm headed. And that, therefore, it's like hard to manage that tension. Like, sometimes we get very attached to the service we offer to other people. And right now, your service and who you are in your career is like, going under massive transformation. So that could be part of the thing. And it could also be about like, I need to nurture a romantic partner, but man, work is kicking my ass. And I'm struggling to bridge that gap and have energy and time for both. You've probably had a desire for some time to change something about your friendship groups, change something about the groups and the network that you're kind of like synced into. Maybe you even have a drive to do something group-based. That could be like something like activism. It could be something like a GoFundMe project. All they're in a similar kind of space. And now it's like, I need to review before I can do that stuff, before I can make those changes. I need to go into a deep review about A, the deep dark thoughts that are kind of holding me back. B, are there any familial inheritances? And this is not just money inheritances. Could be the feelings, the emotions, the vibes. Have I got emotional inheritances from my family that are keeping me back from that stuff? So that's about going to old patterns, old narratives. Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it. There could also be something about a partner's money or somebody else's money, and how that interacts in this equation of wanting to do something, being driven to do something in a communal fashion. And you're going to have, I think, a lot of energy at work to shift things at work in a positive way. And I think that it is about shifting your sense of service, getting more discerning about the service you offer, and also like taking the very necessary daily, everyday steps in order to make shifts in your career. Taurus rising, lovelies. So similar to Aries, you have got the Venus retrograde happening in a part of your chart that's pretty intense because it's happening in the 7th house of marriage, partners, and other people. So Taurus rising, getting back to the new moon in Libra though, that's happening in your 6th house, which is a space which is about health. And definitely with Ceres there, this could be very much about food and digestion. It could also be how we nurture the body and heal the body or don't through our daily health-focused actions. So that could be about taking vitamins or not, eating the right food or not, exercising or not, whatever you got going on. But specifically, it could deal with, quite often deals with digestion and food issues. And this could be about finding the balance between, in a sense, really body and soul, between what the body needs and the very mundane things of like, I need to do the laundry and I need to, take my car for an oil change, versus I need to explore my belief system. I want to know what else is out there philosophically. So it's one part, it can be body versus soul. On the other hand, it can be mundane life versus everything out there that's bigger and greater, that takes us out of ourselves, that takes us out of that kind of like normal daily beat. Changes that we want to make in our career and our public profile are likely getting some tension right now about either from a marriage partner, like an actual romantic partner. It could be an open enemy, what we call like somebody an open enemy, somebody we know is like not in love with us, not necessarily doesn't really love what we're up to. It could also be the marriage partner or the steady romantic partner that comes in the way, or that like the need to get very deep into the reevaluation of a romantic relationship or a business partnership for that matter, could be either, is probably where we need to go before we can make big changes in career, public persona, or even, yes, in marriage. This could be about the definitive need to review a relationship before marriage, because the 10th house, where you've got some stuff happening, can often be about a change in public persona, can be getting married, because that changes you potentially from single person to married person. That is a change in public persona. You're going to have all the creative juices and mojo online and firing in order to feel expansive and powerful and hopeful, and to be able to, I think it's going to feel creative and spiritual. It could be creative and sexual. It could be about letting go, like loosening the hold on ourselves and getting deep into play, which allows us to expand and kind of explore outwards. So yeah, I hope that's helpful. Gemini rising. New moon in Libra is in the 5th house. And that means you are split between the need, like striking the balance between nurturing your creativity, your sexuality, your children even. This is a very indulgent, fun, pleasurable space. And it's coming up against quite powerful, possibly transformative urges, but also very deep-seated kind of like even power struggles. First, it could be about kind of your own emotions that you face. So like, do you have a split psyche about or like a limiting thing of like, I can let myself loose and enjoy myself up to here, but anything more than that, I won't go. It could also be about psychic pains you're facing that are challenging you to still see the play and the joy in everyday life, even as you confront deep pain, even as you confront very anguished situations, and trying to find that healthy balance between the two. There is a sense of, in that way, it's like also like carrying on from that, like wanting to change our beliefs, like wanting to probably not get stuck and mired in very, very deep, anguished thoughts. It's like, how can I change my spiritual backbone? The kind of thing that holds me and pushes me through life and makes me feel like held up and strong. And there's a sense that we need to probably approach that by reviewing how we show up in the world on a very easy daily basis. So that could be about do you know what that is? About minding body before we mind soul. That is about almost like the Zen in the art. What is that old book? Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Repair, is it? Oh God, I probably totally botched that title. But the idea of like that you can find Zen, you can find spirituality, not just when you're in the ashram off on retreat, but like in quiet moments at home while having a cup of tea, while doing paperwork. And it seems like we need to value everyday life before we can make big changes in our spiritual beliefs. And there's also like a secondary thing of like, you got to take care of your body a little bit more and get back into a sense of health and what that means for you before you can go off on some like big time jaunt in a foreign place. Support is going to help come from family and home base. You know, there's going to be a sense that your home base, your family unit, your mom or dad, your parents are going to like possibly support you through this and help you shift the way you're thinking. Cancer. Cancer, this is happening in your 4th house of home, parents, childhood. And it seems to suggest, new moon in Libra is that is, it seems to suggest that you need to strike a balance between a sense of being nurtured by home and your home space and your parents, while at the same time dealing with big major transformations and possibly losses in the space of romantic or business partnerships. So this could be about, for some people, this will be about splitting up. For some people, this will be about changing residences. For some people, this will be about as well finding a new foundation, a new personal foundation, a new sense of home within oneself, if not a physical home, that helps you better negotiate losses, particularly in the romantic realm, but also in business partnerships, limitations. It also could be finding a new foundation so that you aren't manipulated by people in that space, that you're quite solid and steady at home. Changes you want to make. In how you collect money and how money is divvied up, possibly about partners and their money. First needs to be done on the level of what's enjoyable and what do we really value in enjoyment, because sometimes we fritter away money and resource thinking that we enjoy XYZ when really our heart is filled by something very, very different. So there's something here about that, about like really reevaluating what is play, what is joy. I think also there is a sexual undertone here that kind of suggests that like you would like to get into, kind of innovate or strike out, possibly sexually, and that there's a need to almost review and reevaluate the parts of sexual connection that are enjoyable, playful, childlike, enthusiastic, and the parts that are about power, the parts that are not about joy and the body, the parts are about something else, about control, about another element. I think you're going to find ways to communicate, write, or speak with other people, and even your this romantic partner or business partner with whom you might be facing transformation or loss, but you're going to have the right words and the right precision with speech and communication or correspondence of some kind to get your message across and to have a great interaction here. Leo rising. New moon in Libra happening in a space of the chart that seems to suggest, I'm just going to take a look here. You are caught between the need to strike a balance with nurturing on one level, siblings, aunties, uncles, cousins, kind of like the ring of people past like your nuclear group. And this could also be about writing. This could be about your community. This could be about culture. There's something about the mind and about communication here in particular in this space of the chart. And there could be the need to strike that balance between attachment and nurturance in this space versus transformations that are happening in the space of health, your everyday life, your ideas about service, and what kind of service you want to give out to people. So part of that could be almost like word as bond. The difference between words and work, the difference between community and service. And even mind, again, mind and body. There's something about, like, I always think about the 3rd, 6th, and 9th as mind, body, soul in a way. So I think this is about also mind and body. Like, how do I nurture my mind and my way of speaking? How do I be nurturing and also still be of service? Like, there could be some kind of balance to strike there. I think changes that you have been wanting to make with romantic partnerships, I mean, you've had a lot going on there because you've had eclipses happening in that part of the house. Changes that you've been wanting to make with romantic partners or business partners, there's a sense that, like, you need to reassess your sense of foundation. Can the changes you want to make, the changes you want to make, can your foundation weather that storm? Is there enough stability in your sense of foundation, whether that's a physical home or just like a sense of being rooted in this life? Can it weather the storms that inevitable changes in your relationships in business and love would require? I think you're going to have really good savvy about money and service and about income and service and work in some kind of way, or valuing your work in an appropriate way so that you give things the right measure of effort for the right value. And there's going to be a nice little boost happening in that space. And last but not least, Virgo rising. 2nd house new moon. So new moon in Libra in your 2nd house suggests that you need to strike a balance between spending and playing. I mean, this is very Virgo anyway. Sometimes you guys are like, oh, work and no play. This is definitely suggests that, like, yeah, be balanced with money. Nurture yourself. Nurture your bank account. Watch your, incomings and outgoings. Balance the checkbook. Yeah, do it. Do it all. But have fun. Enjoy it. You need to transform and continue the transformative journey you're on about how to enjoy things, how to be in pleasure, how to let go, how to be childlike and playful when you approach certain things. Changes that you want to make in your health or could definitely be served by reevaluating the power and the value of the mind on health. There could be definitely something about changing the way that you live everyday life so that you can enjoy and connect with your community and your culture in a way that you find rewarding. I think definitely with Pallas Athena in your own sign, you are going to find meaningful ways to shift relationships, or like be really discerning and use that power of discerning to shift how you're feeling about pleasure, about indulgence, about sex, about children, about all these areas of life that are really fun but that are undergoing a little bit of pressure right now with all the astrology that you've got going on. But there is support there. And that brings us to the end of our new moon and Libra horoscopes. So let me know in the comments if you liked this, if you felt like this was helpful, if you would like to see more of this, if you want it to be like this every time. Do you want to you think it's like this, but I should split them into different videos? Then let me know. Let me know what you're thinking. And lots of love to all of you as always, and I will speak to you soon. Bye.